Hi, and welcome back to the lab. It's been a while, and in the interim, I have acquired a new project. So, a while back on the IRC channel, EV Blog IRC channel, I got to talking to an individual there who had a scope, which was kind of not, partially working. And he said, well, look, I don't have time to play around with it, don't have time to fix it. If you want to try and take a crack at it, it's all yours. So I said, oh, geez, yeah, give it a try. And this is the scope. So this is a Tektronix 7854 mainframe oscilloscope, 400 megahertz bandwidth, backplane bandwidth. And depending, of course, on what the plugins are on it, you've got various actual bandwidths. I don't remember exactly which ones are which here. So both of these are vertical plugins. These two are time-based plugins. The main time-based, I think, is the Delane one anyway. This guy's a bit buggered right there, but anyway. And I have two more. I have two additional plugins. A low, very low amplifying plugin, the 7A22, which is I think 10 microvolts per division or something like that. The level or whatever you want to call it. And this is I'm not sure if it's the first, but this is definitely one of the earliest, or one of the early digital storage oscilloscopes. I haven't gone through the full schematics or block diagram yet, but I'm led to believe that this particular model had or has both an analog and a digital side, and it's the digital side that's actually not working. The analog side is apparently working just fine. So one of the first things we're going to do is we're going to pull it open, do a visual inspection, do a check to make sure nothing's kind of rattling around. I'm going to pull the plugins, just give them a quick little shake to make sure nothing's rattling around that I need to look into a bit further. And I'm also going to check the service manual to see if there's any things I should be aware of, and to find a particular jumper which will disable the digital section and allow the analog section to come up. So if everything's working correctly in the analog section, we should at least be able to get a trace, a sweep, I should say, jolt trace, whatever, and we should be able to get some waveforms up on the screen and verify that at least all the analog portion seems to work correctly. And then once that's been established, then we can really dive in and see what the problem is with the digital section. I think, if I remember correctly, it was something to do with the memory, not the EEPROM, but the RAM. That may be not fully seated properly or something like that. But anyway, so there's quite a few things in there. So we'll go and pop her open and take a look and have a gander at it. All right, let's get to it. Okay, so here we are at the other bench, and there's a few things I'd like you to note. The first one is the actual configuration of the two plugins. I originally misunderstood, I guess, the arrangement that we needed to have the analog section work correctly. So actually what you need to have, I chose to use two vertical amplifier plugins, one for the X, one for the Y, so this basically puts it into XY mode. And originally I was having the, quote unquote, the X plugin in the leftmost position, and that's incorrect. It actually has to be in the right one. That's the one that defaults to when in analog mode only. So what I've done is I've set this up really simply, feeding the calibration signal set to 4 volt peak to peak into both the channel 1 of the X and channel 1 of the Y channels, plugins, I guess. And if we turn this on now, we're going to get essentially 2 dots as it bounces back and forth. It's a square wave. And there you go, you can see it. So if we adjust the Y, actually I guess this is technically the Y, and this is the X. I guess that makes sense. Horizontal, vertical, anyway. So you can see our two dots there. Hopefully that comes through clearly. I can bump the brightness a little bit much. But yeah, maybe that's a bit too much. Okay, so you have our 2 points there, and like I said, this is a square wave, so of course you're going to get 2 points as it's bouncing back and forth between the two. So this is normal. So that was the first problem, is I had the plugins wrong, and then I should say the first problem was I had the digital MPU board still in. That seemed to not work properly. So as soon as I pulled that, and I had one of the plugins in the right place, and I was able to get at least the X direction working. And then I realized that I had to try a different plugin for the Y, and it worked. Slot for the Y, and that worked perfectly. So this leaves me in the place where I have proven that the analog side works. There's nothing wrong with it. It's displaying a trace. It looks okay. If I put a real horizontal time base in the B horizontal slot, I can get a waveform. I can trigger on it. It seems to be able to hold it. There's a little weirdness going on, but nothing major. It looks like there's like the waveform's doubled. I'm not entirely sure why that's happening. I have to go and ask, but I'm not going to worry about it at the moment. I got a trace, so we can proceed to the next point of debugging, which is trying to figure out why the digital section's not going to come up. All right, so that's where I'm at. Take care. Thanks for stopping by.